It's great to be here. I think it's the third time I've written the Tree series, Three Incarnations. Ronnie, we met a little while ago. Allah, I have a clear image of you wearing a beret and a red scarf, and it's very clear in my mind, like one of those old French posters. Uh, we were very young then. I'd like to thank Ronnie for keeping me in touch with the poetry scene in Ontario while I was in Maritimes. And she even, unknowingly, helped to get me a job out in Edmonton, University of Alberta. So she said, "You got to apply for this job." Right. That's another story. So, good to be back in Ottawa, and I'm going to read from three books: Reading the Water, and Personal Encounter, and Two Maps of Emery. Reading the Water, the title came about my father, who was a fisherman. As a hobby. I think he saw it more than a hobby. He was an obsessive fisherman. And I remember I was not a fisherman. In fact, the first fish I saw on the Irish Sea and lying on the rocks, I immediately threw back into the ocean, figuring they were having difficulty breathing. So for a while, I did not become my father's son in this particular way. So the first poem I'm going to read is about my father. Called Reading the Water. I recollect weekend trips, my father following red and yellow lines on maps to obscure places with aboriginal names. Trips that began on forlorn bridges, rivers that suddenly disappeared into tangled undergrowth, narrowed to open fields and high grasses. He had strategies that I could only imagine as he followed the curves of the river, a soldier on a subversive campaign, recalling something no doubt mother had said that drove him away from his family to these hedge-lined fields where the water was black and rushing. He stood in the water, hip waders against the current, and waited for the speckled, the brown, the rainbow, moving slowly until he chose the right fly, the appropriate angle, lassoing the line, casting it out into a nest above the current, tugging at it, playing the waters with his fingers, reading its bubbles as notes on some aquascore, reading the sound, the currents, the silences, marks on a rippling dark page. He waited for the change in tension. Timing was all. He could wait there almost all morning, or so it seemed, and I followed him, continually onward, to catch that fish. I'm just thinking I'm going to run out of water, you know. I think that's the slowest dripping faucet I've encountered on the poetry reading. It's really in a major drought, I think. Oh yes, Ronnie, I'm sure I would have failed your professor of writing the Forces Concordia, as I will explain in the next poem. Chinese erotic scene. I always like the sideshows at poetry readings. Performance art, right? I appreciate it. That's great. I've got 2 glasses of water now. Not quite like Robin Williams. Chinese erotic scene at the Royal Ontario Museum. After passing by the bronze horses, vases, bowls, lay, suddenly, in the 1st or 2nd century in the Eastern Han Dynasty, A scene on the gray stone sculpted. A man is making love to a woman on a carpet of the forest. A group of onlookers stands before it. It's a picture of a rape scene or a prostitute with men waiting. One woman cries out, "Oh, I don't like that one," says another. "Let's go on to the good times." The group is embarrassed and wants to move on. The guide leading the group away murmurs, "Perhaps those are the good times." Beside me, a professor of Chinese says, "This work was abandoned for Leavenworth." It is gray, finally yet. The man is about to enter the woman. A basket and cane beside her. Her legs slide over his shoulders so long ago. And his smaller friend behind him slowly pushes his buttocks. "What are friends for?" says the professor of Chinese. And the woman's clothes dangle in the branches in a sunlit afternoon as the monkeys chatter above them, peering down, enjoying their fun, and the peacock spreads his feathers. It's afternoon. The third man stands behind a tall tree with an erection. There's a buzz in the air. It's late afternoon and sunny. Perhaps this is a fertility rite or a legend. Who knows now? Somewhere in a warm afternoon in the late 2nd century AD in China. Personal encounters. I'm fascinated what causes poetry to happen, you know, in most unusual times, in times when you're most unprepared for it. It almost was like a shock. And you can almost see a change in the air. Not a buzz, well, maybe a buzz. You don't know what's going to happen, but you know that something is going to happen. You know, if you have all had that experience of looking at something or someone and recognizing what it is for the first time, or a word you never really thought about, you know, and suddenly it makes sense. Like polyphony is a beautiful word. You take it out of the air, polyphony. Why didn't I think about polyphony before? You know, it's so beautiful. With all those P's and those Y's, that had a natural rhyme, a kind of finesse and the foo sound, and a polyphony. You know, it has that beautiful euphemism. You know, what does it mean, polyphony? It means poly from the Greek, many, and phony, many voices. So there you have polyphony. Right? Ed asked me why I said color painting the other day, and I said, call it polyphony. Well, you sold it. That's a happy coincidence. Okay. Cacophony, yes. A good polyphony. Pencil. So one day I was looking at a pencil, and suddenly I had this experience about the pencilness of things, you know. There was a pencil. You are yellow, the color of the evening sun, rare as a harvest moon. You are composed of graphite, from the Greek graphene to write. You are mine from the earth, I'm writing with your carbon. I love the sound of writing, the way words sound, the way they appear. I feel their force in my fingers, the movement like a rudder through water. Sometimes you almost go silent as a sigh, or just move smoothly, like fingers across the lover's shoulder. I love the action of writing, the way I can conjure words out of the world when I look through the frame of the room at the road lighted by the archipelago of light bulbs, drawn like a bracelet of the dark, snowy hillsides. It invites me into the journey of the night, and the evening itself is a mise en scène. Pencil, yours is a kingdom of rocks and earth. Write me on this page. Write me away slowly when the movement of the earth takes the energy of the carbon, leaving itself on the page. It is a moment of kinesthesia, electricity exploding at a molecular level, the transfer of energy in its private metaphors. moving me toward the horizon of the earth beyond your end. I love painting. I started painting 5 years ago, and I'll show you my painting later. But this painting is my wife's painting, Eva Kolach Hutchman. Even is married freedom, so get used to that. Your painting, like the pencil and something, your painting forever. How is that you are able to paint light and ask us to reconsider what light is, or rain? The spectrum of the rain breaking up into unrecognizable shapes of the city in their fractured neon bursts. It seems the light is raining, or is it raining light? And we pause to listen to rain in the continual jazzy night. How do you break up the wetness of air in the silvery sheen lines into the explosive red traffic lights or the yellow scepter of lamps? How do you paint water's ebb and flow as if you were looking at water until it becomes part of you? When you paint the landscape, you draw us into a pale, meditative sky. Then, okay, not that one. Poetry reading dream. Have you ever been in a dream and tried to read the poem you wrote, or at least imagined you wrote, but couldn't because it wasn't there? I'm going through the pages, but the book is nearly blank. There's not one single fully recognizable poem. This is a nightmare. I continue going through the books, and now I'm starting to lose it. Every time I find a book, there's something wrong with it, and the audience is getting larger. People hanging all over the place. I scavenge into the archival pile, looking for the poetry in all this mess. Suddenly, a small, dingy, fake Parisian studio space becomes a large Montreal bibliothèque. Half the walls disappear. I'm in a country world with parks and rivers and mountains, and I feel as high as a mountain and begin with a poem. I was walking in the city, and there was music everywhere, and everything was light, light. There was rhythm in every motion, every thought, every glance. And I was enjoying with it, grooving with it, my body swinging and moving. You have to look for the mountains in the city. You didn't know they had mountains in Montreal. Look at them, ladies and gentlemen. Look beyond your library eyes to the glowing peaks. Feel the mountain in your blood, in your hands, in your feet. Let them sing in your veins. Let them tell you how to speak. Let them swing and shake and break you. Let the mountains speak within you from every corner of your life, from every lighted space of your being. Let them sing out of every neglected moment, out of every impossible dream. Let the mountains sing with you. Let them awaken you to your eyes. And the audience is swaying. They are with me. I can see the city mountains in their eyes. I can feel the excitement in their veins. I can sense the hunger for the ordinary. I can touch their elemental game. Why can't every reading be like this? Message from the gods. You ever notice how time goes so fast in the poetry? So this is the book. Okay. Farmhouse. That first fall we climbed toward the farmhouse at the top of Emery Hill. Near the ravine ridge, we entered the wooden hut and looked down into the well, wondering where the water came from. When my friend Les and I looked up at the house, the farmer and his dog were bearing down on us. We turned and ran down the hill through the marsh, with the dog chasing us and the farmer waving his shotgun, shouting, "Stay off my land!" Months later, still afraid of that man, we walked again toward the deserted farmhouse. Over the rusty mattresses we crawled, sneaked past the wrecked Studebaker. We opened the door, child anthropologist entering an ancient tomb. Inside, the house was intact. Coil of old lamps, mirrors and a washstand, doilies, a church calendar, God bless our home. It was as though they just moved out. We opened a small black trunk, a treasure chest, and found copies of the Globe and Mail going back to the beginning of the war. And in the wind I hear Walter Cronkite's deep voice speaking of the Battle of Arnhem. Turning the yellow pages, I thought of the man overseas as I read headlines, Stalingrad, Normandy, El Alamein, and studied photos of Churchill and Roosevelt resembling old trading cards. The next week, in the cold November chill, I saw this black trunk in the Gulfstream schoolyard, the broken chest spilling out its papers, like calendar pages in an old movie, clinging to the wire of the frost fence. A few months before, families were still out doing the wash, pumping water, feeding animals, and then they were gone. Only the moldy smell of mattresses, rusty-stained refrigerators, and the ruined walls of the farmhouse remained, and the memory of the nameless farmer, like an old god guarding the hilltop. I don't know if you remember this, but you remember Miss Christopherson? This was Miss Christopherson. Miss Christopherson's writing glove. She sat on the corner of the desk wearing a tight black dress with her long legs and black stockings, and her hair tumbled like that of a movie star. In grade 8 extracurricular activities, I gave up basketball and volleyball to join the school newspaper. When she asked me to find a story, I interviewed the players after our victory on the ice. As she read my writing, I looked at the freckles around her neck and just above her breast, while perfume wafted over me like a tropical breeze. She drove us into a kind of frenzy, like a woman in Playboy foldouts. Was there anything more powerful than a 13-year-old's fantasy of Miss Christopherson? I'm going to finish with French dictation. I think it's Ottawa. I think we'll see. It's funny how life happens to us sometimes. While we're busy making other plans, right? I failed French 3 times in high school, and I ended up teaching at 2 French universities. So probably the change was when I discovered Albert Camus' The Rebel, and I thought, and I better learn French to read this in the original. So you probably remember French from high school. Maybe it's Spanish now. French dictation. Seeing the poster in the college hallway, Dictée des Amériques 1994, I remember the piercing words coming from the green plastic tape recorder. Écoutez, n'écrivez pas. The shrill voice of a dictator from the Franco-Prussian War. It was a voice calculated to evoke fear. Et les pour le monsieur depuis, virgule? Sounds of panic. Swirling turbulence, a needle punctures the skin. I spin like Lloyd Bridges in Sea Hunt, bubbles bursting round my twisted mask, drifting to the bottom of the sea. Et puis, Les poules dans les jardins deviennent ivres. Point d'exclamation. The words came fast like a fusillade. The verbs lined up like a battalion on a battlefield. Future simple, future antérieur, future conditionnel. The dictator droned on about the drunken chickens, and my pen limped across the page, anticipating the impending red casualties. Hitchhiking from Algeciras to Madrid, an eccentric Moroccan threatened to throw me into the night of the Spanish desert. The only way to remain in the car was to speak French. Every noun, every verb, every phrase I could remember. The words of French 101. L'étranger, huis clos, le livre de mon ami. Making up the language as I went along, hearing the sound of the dictator's voice. Écoutez, n'écrivez pas. Mesa forms in the desert became wolves. Shadows of trees became bandits. Then the language became my ally, allowing me to stay in the safety of the car, mile after mile after mile. And so I talked about mauvaise foi, Meursault and autres arabes, Rimbaud, les dérangements de tous les sens, Baudelaire, la nature est un temple. I told the driver it didn't matter if the car wasn't safe and the insurance had run out. And I remembered the rules, felt the rhythm of the phrases. I talked about the virtues of Morocco, les grands lacs, les montagnes, la mer. I talked about anything sous le soleil, just to stay in the car, just to get to Madrid. Parle de la Gaule, parle de Quebec, parle de Gare de Sevilla, and parle de Franco, parle de Lorca, parle de l'amour, parle de fromage, parle de vin, des fleurs, de Paris, de Londres, parle de la neige du Canada, mais ne parle pas en anglais. We drove past the great fallen castles, spoke of the words of the dictator. Then les mots sont mes amis. The car, a strange, wide-finned ambulance, rumbled through the wild Cebu's Spanish night. Thank you.